It's time to go live. It's time to represent. Reluctant Success family, you know what time it is. That's right, Jerry Franklin Poe coming to you live. 31 days of sharing. Today, I am excited because I'm going to be sharing another book. Yes, if you've been watching this series so far, I've introduced at least one or two books a week. And this week, I decided to pick one of my top books, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And as I was going through my notes, like you'll probably see here, as I've shown in other books, I had a tendency to probably see that right to underline sections. And as I was going through this, because this book is a little bit longer than some of the others I've talked about. This book is 260 plus pages, over 266. So as I was going through and looking at the notations I made to myself, I realized that I don't think I can get all the nuggets that I want to share with you from this book in one live. So this is probably going to be a multiple parts on this book, and I think you'll enjoy that because if you haven't read this book, it is definitely one of the top books to read to develop what I would call emotional intelligence, or not. I don't call it emotional intelligence. I think everybody calls it emotional intelligence now, but people skills is what the general term is. And Dale Carnegie in his book, this is an old book. You probably have heard of this book, and if you haven't heard of this book, well, now you do know that it exists. This book was written, the original copyright is 1936. So you're talking about another book that's close to 90 years old, right? And the principles in this book are basic human nature principles about how we interact with each other, what makes us tick, and how to increase your likability factor. So there's so much meat in this book. And personally, I did not read it cover to cover. When I opened it up and I saw it and I saw some of the language that was used, because 90 years ago people communicated differently. They had a different tone, they had a different jargon that they used. The wording was different in terms of how we communicated, kind of like when you read Shakespeare. The language in Shakespeare was at that time the popular language, which is a little bit different now, so you have to translate it into what it would actually mean to us in today's wording. So what I did was, this was when I first joined Audible. I believe this was the very first Audible book I listened to. So I wanted to get the information. I wanted to get the information faster. So I joined audible.com, and this is before Audible was bought out by Amazon. So you're talking, I would say, at least 15 plus years ago. So within a matter of a couple days, I was able to finish this book by just listening to a little piece here and there through Audible. So that would be a suggestion. If you're a fast reader, then have at it. But if you're a person like myself that likes to listen to stuff and you can process it faster by listening than you can actually reading it out of the book, then I would highly recommend you check this out on Audible as well. So let me pull up some of my notes here. I just had them a second ago. So here, I'm going to share with you some of the key points. And again, as I stated earlier, this will be a two-parter, maybe more than two parts. I think I might maybe go to 3 parts with this. So I'll definitely be talking about this book later on tonight at 7 p.m. for my live in the evening. And depending on how much I get done there, I might go again tomorrow morning. And so I'll just see. I think this book is worth the time that I'm going to dedicate to it, and I believe you will get a lot of value from it as well. So here are some of the key points. And remember, this is all about people skills, developing your ability to deal, because there's technical skills and there's people skills. Technical skills, everybody has some level of technical skill, whether you're an engineer, accountant, lawyer, doctor, whether you're a mechanic, plumber, electrician, carpenter. Everybody has some level of technical skills, but what makes people different in terms of their success in business and also in life is their people skills. It's how you make people feel when they're around you. How you make people feel when they're around you. So here are some of the things that I thought were significant this morning as I was going through some of my notes. One, there's a thing I noticed in the book. It had quotes from other people. So there was a quote here from a guy named Hans Selfie, and he said, "As much as we thirst for approval, we dread condemnation. As much as we thirst for approval, we dread condemnation." I thought that was interesting. So we like approval, but we also don't like people to condemn us, to hate us, talk bad about us. Confucius was in there in the book as well. There was a quote by Confucius that Dale Carnegie had in the book, and I thought this was really interesting, funny, to humorous level. He says, "Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your doorstep is unclean." Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your doorstep is unclean. I thought that was interesting because in the world that we live in, sometimes people are quick to talk about other people's stuff when their stuff isn't all together. That's interesting. Here's another one. This was really good. So if you are writing in the comments, this is definitely one of the notes you want to make for yourself. And as I'm going through this, write down some of the key points that you're getting from the book. Also in the comments, jot down which one of these quotes stuck out the most for you. And if you have read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, jot down in the comments, put in the comments, what did the book mean to you? What did you get from the book when you read it? So this one is a really major nugget. He said, when dealing with people, let's remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion. Creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity. And what's significant there is a lot of times when we're dealing with folks, we think people are making decisions rationally, making decisions logically, but the majority of the time when people make a decision or they take action, it's based on how they feel, it's based on their emotion. And what's interesting is he said that we're dealing with creatures not just of emotion, but bristling with prejudices motivated by pride and vanity. Now, when you look at that word bristling, let's think of another word for that, because that's again one of those old timey words. I don't really use bristling. So bristling, what can we say? Overflowing is another word for bristling. Yeah, that would be one I would probably pick. So bristling, that's a very interesting word that I don't think a lot of people are using in today's language. So here's another good one. This is a quote by Ben Franklin. "I will speak ill of no man and speak all the good I know of everybody." I will speak ill of no man and speak all the good I know of everybody. So this was really interesting when I broke this down mentally as I was going through my notes. So he says, I'm not going to talk bad about anybody, but when it comes to talking about people, I want to only talk about the good things I know about them, which doesn't mean the person is actually like, it doesn't mean the person's like, not a bad person. It could be somebody that's messed up, jacked up, doing a lot of things wrong. But if I do talk about them, I'm only going to bring up their positive side. So, someone could be a really criminal-minded person, somebody who talks bad about everybody, but you might bring up the one factor that, they're never late, or they're a good father, or, they, tie their shoes properly. I don't know, something. So I thought it was interesting with that quote by Ben Franklin, because it didn't say, I want to talk good about people that's like, make up stuff that's unreal. It's like, I'm just going to try to look for the good in that person. So if I do talk about that person, I'm going to be just talking about only the good parts that I know and not to speak any ill will against him. And this was something that led Dale Carnegie to expand upon. One of the things he said that I think is a good note for us here, he says, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. And I thought that was interesting, especially with our Twitterverse, the Twitter world that we're in now, that there are so many people that are quick to condemn, complain, attack other people, and it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. And there's a quote here by Carlyle that said, "A great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men." Now, this word man here and men, of course, this was 90 years ago. Their man would be everybody, mankind. So it includes all people. So it's basically, if you change it up, it says a great person shows their greatness by the way they treat everybody, or people that may not be as significant in their mind to them. So how you treat people who society doesn't see as significant is really the key factor to your greatness. And then I'm going to leave with these last couple ones. It's Dr. John Dewey. This is where it starts to get into the human nature side of how people think, what makes us tick. And it says that the deepest human nature urge is the desire to feel important. So Dr. John Dewey said the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. And that's critical. That's one of the things that the whole book is based upon, are these human desires that we have. Like, what are we driven by? What drives our human nature? And one of the drivers of our human nature is the desire to be or feel important. And you notice that, especially this year, a lot of people have been raising their voice. A lot of the protests that you saw on all areas, I don't care what topic it was, whether it be the people who are protesting against police violence, against unarmed citizens, or people protesting against the fact that they were, not allowed to go to a bar, or they didn't want to wear a mask. Whatever the protest was about, it all comes back to people feeling that they're not being heard. And when people feel they're not being heard, that leads them to feel that they're not important, and they want to feel important, so they go do something about that. Another quote that I thought was interesting is from Abraham Lincoln. Everybody likes a compliment. Everybody likes a compliment. So you cannot go wrong giving someone a sincere compliment if you want to increase likability. Now, when I say sincere there, because some people give compliments that are like fake. They're not real. They're not saying anything that's, unique to that person. So one of the things I like to do is I like to, when I meet someone, just to look at them and read them and see if I could pick out some things that they like. Like, I noticed that some people wear certain colors. Their glasses might be a certain color, or they have this jewelry that's a certain color, or they'll wear a certain tie or certain shoes, or there's something that they do to accent their clothing. And those are the things I try to compliment people on, those unique idiosyncrasies that they have that makes them, right? And then compliment them on those unique things. And I'm sincere, like, yeah, I like that, those frames on your glasses, or I like those shoes, or I like the way you put that pocket square matched up with that tie, or that purse does a good job of accenting your outfit. I like the way, that scarf matches up with the color in your eyes is blue. So I try to do something that's a sincere compliment just to make a connection and increase likability. William James, if you're not familiar with him, he was a professor at Harvard, and he's one of the forefathers of American psychology. And what he's quoted in the book is saying is the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. The craving to be appreciated. And I'm going to leave you with this last part for now, and then we're going to keep going with this, because I can sense that there's so much meat that you're getting from this. So a lot of content here. It's a content-rich book. So I can tell that you're probably thinking to yourself, like, man, Jared, there's a lot of stuff to take in. Like, how much more is there? There's a lot more. This is only within the first couple chapters of the book. We haven't even gotten to halfway through the book. So one part that I thought was interesting, it says, Dale Carnegie put this in here. He says, if you tell me how you get your feeling of importance, I'll tell you what you are. That determines your character. So if you tell me how you get your feeling of importance, so what you do to get that feeling. So because people will do different activities in order to create that feeling in themselves, and some of those activities could be empowering, and some of those activities can be disempowering. So he says your character is a reflection of what you do to make yourself feel important. For example, there are some people who put down other folks to make themselves feel more important, and that's their habit. Their habit pattern is to tear other people down, and you see this there, every day, that there are people out there in the world. Some of them have big titles and high positions, and they'll do some nasty things to other people just to make themselves feel important. And then there are other folks that they might be building people up. Their feeling of importance is given to them by how they help make other people feel important. So it's how you go about determining your level of importance or getting that feeling determines or is a factor in determining your character. So I'm going to pause right here because I know I gave you a lot of information in a short period of time. I would suggest watching this over again and watching it over again because there are so many things that I said that I don't want you to miss. And I'll be back later because this book is big, massive, content-rich nugget full of book. It's a lot in this book, and I'm gonna pull out as much of my notes as possible over the next few lives. I don't know how many more it's going to be, but I'm going to keep doing lives on this book until I get as many nuggets as possible, because I think this book right here is something that everyone can benefit from. So since I'm sharing, I might as well share as much as I can from this book, because you may not have it. If you don't have it, then this will give you a little shortcut to the information. If you do have it, you might want to pull your book out and review some of the things I said. So until next time, my friends, remember to follow me at reluctantsuccess.com. That's the website. You can follow my weekly webinar series. This week I'm doing a webinar on speaking to sell, speaking secrets on selling from the stage. And you can like my page, share this video out. But until then, until the next time I see you on Facebook Live, remember to be valiant, be vigilant, and be victorious.